Is everything all right?
Cash this time, happy pills the next. Everything's just fine.
Your visitor's here. Inspector Grace?
Well, who else were you expecting?
This really is a quite extraordinary situation you've placed us in. There's a lot of conflicting evidence about ownership, which should have been cleared up by the prosecution before coming to this court. But the weight is quite clearly in favour of the defendant at the time of the fire. Consequently, I find myself in the situation of being unable to proceed with this case. I therefore have no option but to dismiss the charge. You may go, Mrs. Wordsworth.
What do you mean?
The charge against you has been dismissed.
You mean I got off?
Yes.
You bloody ripper! Ooh. I still don't understand all that legal stuff. Oh, I thought I was a goner when he started spouting off about the will.
Well, the most important thing is that you're free, Lizzy, and I'm really happy for you. It was worth $1 million just to see that bloody Gordon's face when they told me I'd been let off. Speak of the devil. What do you want?
You think you're pretty damn clever, don't you? Well, I'm not through with you yet. That verdict was ridiculous. You know, you ought to be locked up. If not in Wentworth, at least someplace where you can't get at decent people.
Hey, just a minute. How dare you speak to Lizzy like that?
Yeah, and if you do it again, I'll forget I'm a lady and I'll knock your bloody block off.
People like you don't belong in our society.
That is enough.
And people like you don't belong on the face of the earth. Frightening an old lady to an early grave, you ought to be horsewhipped.
Well, if you'd left in the first place when I made those phone calls, instead of hanging around like a leech, we wouldn't be arguing over a pile of ashes, would we?
So you did make the phone calls?
There you are. What did I tell you?
A very interesting admission, Mr. Humphrey.
Yes, it certainly is.
Who the hell are you?
Senior Detective Olson, Special Branch.
I'm clean. It's official.
We know that, Mrs. Wordsworth. But certain information was brought up at the trial that some of my colleagues think needs investigation.
Oh, you're damn right. Letting a woman like her get off scot-free. What are you going to do about it?
I'm afraid you've missed the point, Mr. Humphrey. Scaring an old lady out of her wits with threats and terror tactics to get your hands on something that doesn't belong to you sounds very much like extortion.
Oh, you must be joking.
Would you like to come along with me, sir? A few questions we'd like to ask you.
Look, this is all a mistake. I haven't committed any crime.
You can make a...
Wacko, I've done it. I beat the system, Mrs. M. Fancy an old bird like me cracking it. Oh, God, I wish B was here. That'd cure her next to no time.
Oh, don't tell me you forgot the champagne.
You might need this. The VJ's here in an hour. That's why lunch is early.
There. Well, skip the food. I'll settle for a cigarette.
You know I can't do that. It's trafficking. And if you're caught with cigarettes, I'll come straight to me, right?
If the big wave boy scared he might get his knuckles whacked for being naughty.
I just don't see any point in taking risks, that's all. Besides, why should I do you a favour?
Look, I'm not going to see you in trouble over a lousy packet of smokes. Anyway, if you really want to do me a favour, I can think of a better one we can do for each other.
Don't know what you're talking about.
Oh, yes, you do. You know, Steve, just because you're a screw doesn't alter the laws of nature.
We're both human. Sooner or later, you're going to have to face up to that.
Here. I'm trying to give them up anyway.
Thanks, that's one I owe you. I always pay my debts.
And a piece of roast chicken with some gravy would be nice. Not steak, because me choppers couldn't handle it.
How about a nice cold glass of beer to wash it down with, eh?
No, that gives me wind. Gin and tonic.
I'd love to join you, but I've got too much work to do.
I reckon I got just enough to shout you.
Oh, back for a last goodbye, eh? Congratulations, we heard the good news. Well, I suppose you'll be glad to see the back of this place.
Too right. There was a time when I wouldn't have swapped this place for quids. But now most of my old mates are gone and this whole place has gone to the dogs.
I've got to go and change, Steve. Will you look after Lizzy?
Sure. Your things are all ready for you. You just have to sign them.
There's not much worth signing for except Sid's photo.
You will be all right, Lizzy.
Yeah, I'll be all right.
Now, don't you forget to contact your parole officer.
Okay. But I wish it could be you.
We will see each other again, Lizzy, you know.
I know. I'm just being a bit of a sook.
Look, Here's a couple of numbers I think you should have. One's for the Senior Citizens Community Centre, and the other one's for Myra Desmond, you know, from the Prison Reform Group. Now, you ring her if you need anything. Yeah. You've been a real good sport to me, Mrs. M. I wish I could think of some way I could say thank you. If you want to thank me, Lizzie, you have a good life. And don't come back to Wentworth. I won't. I promise. Say goodbye to Mrs. Davis. Goodbye.
Are you all right, Mrs. Birdsworth?
Right, is that everyone, Mrs. Davidson?
Yes, Mr. Goodwin.
Good. Mrs. Edwards, I'm sure you're aware the list of charges against you is quite considerable.
Well, if I'm not, I'm sure you'll tell me.
Inciting a riot, riotous behaviour, assault, assaulting an officer, unlawful imprisonment of an officer, willful damage, arson, and disobeying an officer.
What about plotting to overthrow the government and blowing up the Sydney Opera House?
That'll be enough, Edwards.
Oh, no, it won't. Not by a long chalk. You think I enjoyed that riot? You lot lock us up in cages and treat us like animals, then punish us for running true to form.
That will do, Edwards.
Young woman, you're not doing your case any good by these wild outbursts. They can only serve to prejudice the court against you.
This is a court? Well, pardon me, I thought it was a bloody farce. If this is a court, when do the kangaroos start hopping?
Are you suggesting you won't get a fair hearing?
How the hell can I? Where's my lawyer? I haven't got a hope, and you know it. Oh, sure, you go through all the motions, but that's just to keep your consciences clear. You lot have already found me guilty, and I'm only here for the sentencing.
Shall I remove the prisoner, Mrs. Davidson?
Oh, yeah, go ahead. Have it all your own way. That way you can decide how to carve me up without worrying that I'll hear you.
Be quiet, Edwards, or I will have you removed.
Well, if Mrs. Edwards has quite finished her little tirade, perhaps we can proceed with the first witness.
That's another setup. You're not going to listen to my side of the story when you've got a long string of screws spouting their version of who started it.
You will have ample time to dispute and cross-examine the witnesses if you will just let us get on with the proceedings. Now, who is the first witness in this matter?
It was to have been my Deputy Governor, Mr. Fletcher, but as he is not here, I will read his report in evidence.
You're too much, the lot of you. What do you reckon, Your Honour? Will I be allowed to cross-examine the bloody typewriter?
Well? Oh, right now, you're probably in better shape than I am. You've really made remarkable progress.
Well, how much longer?
All being well, you can go home tomorrow.
Home? You have obviously never seen Wentworth.
Is that definite, Doctor? I'll have to notify the department.
Yes. I can't see there being any complications at this stage, although I may want to run some tests in a week or so. I take it there is a doctor on call at Wentworth?
No, officially, no. But you could say I have my own personal physician. My cellmate's a doctor.
That wouldn't be Kate Peterson by any chance?
Yeah. How do you know her?
Unfortunately, I have had that dubious pleasure.
Well, come on, Doc. Give. What do you know about her I don't?
I can understand your reluctance to go back, Mrs. Smith. But no matter how bad Wentworth is, it's far too good for the likes of Kate Peterson. I'll call back later and see Mrs. Smith.
All right, Doctor.
Well, what do you know about that?
G'day. I haven't got a reservation, but I'd like a room.
Just sign the register. That's a single, Mrs. Birdsworth.
Elizabeth Birdsworth. I have never stayed here before, but looks real good on the outside. I've just come down from Malula Bar, you see.
Really?
I've been staying with my daughter. you're not going to believe this, but I haven't had a holiday for 20 or 30 odd years. Am I going to enjoy myself? I'm going to put my feet up and just...
Well, I'm sure you'll have a nice day. Now, do you want some help with your things?
Oh, no, thank you, love. I can manage. You just point me in the right direction.
Let's take the stairs to the first floor and turn right. Your room's the second on the left.
Righto.
Mrs. Birdsworth.
Yeah?
You'll need the key.
Oh, I'd forget my head if it wasn't screwed on. Be it ever so humble.
Sandra Edwards, I find on the evidence all charges against you proved.
Surprise, surprise.
Do you have anything to say before I pass sentence?
Sure, I've got plenty to say. But a fat lot of good it'll do me, so I might as well save my breath.
That is both untrue and unfair, Edwards.
You really think so, Mrs. Davidson? You know, I don't blame you. You'd probably change things if you could, only you haven't got the guts. Just have a look at him. It'd be bloody laughable if it wasn't so sad. He couldn't care less about any of us. We're not human to him. That means we've got no rights. So why should he be concerned about a little thing like truth and justice?
Edwards, I must warn you, I am rapidly losing my patience. I don't like your attitude.
Well, I don't like yours either, so that makes the two of us. Oh, go on, pass your sentence, do what you like.
Mrs. Edwards, you seem to feel that you're being railroaded by this court, when in fact nothing could be further from the truth. Your misplaced loyalties have got you into this trouble. Now, if there is someone else involved in plotting the riot, you have a duty to identify that person. Instead, you've chosen to make things as difficult as possible for everyone concerned, especially yourself.
I don't lag for anyone.
Since you refuse to cooperate, I have no option but to sentence you to 6 months imprisonment on each of the first 2 charges, 3 months each on the next 5 charges, and 1 month on the final charge. A total of 2 years and 4 months to be served consecutively and in addition to your existing sentence.
You mongrel!
Plus 2 days in solitary confinement for contempt of court.
Mrs. Powell, take the prisoner back to her cell. Come on.
You couldn't lock me up long enough to get rid of the contempt I feel for this court!
Oh, yes, keep it up, Edwards. Laughter's going to be your only company for a while.
Don't you worry about me, Pope's. After seeing you screws together, I reckon I'll have a better time on my own anyway.
Just don't learn, do you? You're not in control here. Oh, I know, you'd like to think you are. Well, you're not. Now, you've made your little bid for power and it's failed. We are in control permanently.
There are going to be no more riots, and you and your cocky little friends are going to learn to toe that line if you know what's good for you.
Oh, stop it. You're breaking me up. You don't really believe all that garbage, do you, po-face? Because if you do, you're going to have to lay in a pretty big supply of liniment. You're going to have a bloody stiff neck from looking over your shoulder all the time.
Threatening me, are you?
Would I do a thing like that? You know me, I'm just trying to be helpful. Tell you what, give me a smoke and I'll give you a few tips on how you and your neurotic mates can really keep this zoo in order.
Yeah. Well, from where I'm standing, zoo's a pretty good description.
I'd like you to be clever. What about the smoke?
You make me sick.
Likewise, I'm sure.
Hello. I suppose I've missed seeing Lizzy.
Yes, but she asked to say goodbye. How did Edward's hearing go?
2 years and 4 months. Considering the way she provoked the VJ, she's lucky it wasn't more.
Oh, if only we could get these women proper legal representation.
You're not suggesting it would affect the outcome. Surely we go out of our way to be impartial at the hearings.
Yes, I know. But do we have the moral right to deny them proper legal advice? Well, that's all I'm saying.
Edwards could have asked the VJ for proper legal advice instead of being disruptive and abusive.
But we teach these women to respect the legal code, and then we deny them the very rights they'd have if they were arrested outside the prison. I mean, how can we expect to rehabilitate them if we don't give them any guidelines?
You may be right, but it's not something we can change overnight.
No, of course not. Oh, I want to speak to you about a union matter.
Oh?
The department's ruling on security is making some of the staff pretty nervous. Look, we can't keep up this strict suppression forever. It's like sitting on a powder keg.
I understand your feelings, but my hands are tied. I can't ease up on restrictions. There might have been a chance if the women hadn't rioted, but now the department will come down even heavier than ever.
Oh, but at what cost? Look, I don't think the department gives a damn about the women or the officers, for that matter.
I know it must seem that way sometimes.
Sometimes? Look, this place was running pretty smoothly until the department imposed those new measures. That's what caused the riot.
Well, they don't see it that way.
Oh, no, of course they don't. Then they'd have to admit they were in the wrong.
Meg, I don't think you
Look, what about staff to handle all this security? Is Mr. Douglas seeing to that?
Yes, as a matter of fact, I've just had a call from him.
And?
From now on, female officers must be accompanied by male officers at all times. The department will supply the male replacements within the next few days.
Replacements?
Yes, I'm afraid so. For every male officer supplied, we lose one of our existing staff.
And what will happen to them? Are they out of work?
No, of course not. They'll be offered a choice of one of the low-security prisons.
In the country? Well, what about their homes and families? What if they don't want to go? No, Mrs. Davidson. I don't think the union will find that acceptable.
Suppose it'll have to do. Not as good as my house, though.
It's time you got out of here and let us have this bed for someone who's really sick.
Oh, so I'm still going back tomorrow, huh?
Bright and early. I want you to have a good rest tonight, so I'll get Sister to give you a sleeping draught later. Can't miss your beauty sleep.
I don't think sleep's going to help this face.
Don't fish for compliments.
It's fishing. Now, I'm hardly a Kate Peterson. Now, she's really attractive, don't you think?
Really, Mrs. Smith, I'd expect you to be a little more subtle.
You don't like her, do you?
That's an understatement.
Well?
hardly be ethical for me to discuss a former colleague with a patient. Besides, what's the point in dragging out the dirty linen now? Peterson's locked safely away where she can't hurt other people.
A fair go. What the hell do you think we are?
Pardon?
Wentworth is full of people. And Kate Peterson is right smack in the middle of them. She has a lot of clout with the other women. Anyone who's passed 6th grade's pretty impressive in there. Now, if you think she's dangerous, bugger your ethics, you've got to tell me.
Look, I've still got to take her blood pressure. Why don't you go and get a cup of coffee?
No, I'd better not. I can't leave you alone with Smith, Doctor.
Well, I don't think this dangerous criminal is going to knock me on the head and steal my stethoscope.
Not unless it's diamond-studded.
Well, I suppose it'll be all right.
Congratulations. Couldn't have done better myself.
Look, I'm not in the habit of scandalizing, but you and the other woman have a right to know for your own protection. Kate Peterson is the most amoral and devious person it's ever been my misfortune to meet.
Wow, that's pretty heavy stuff.
Well, you don't know her like I do. I can't prove it, but I think she was up to her neck in a health insurance fraud worth thousands. Conrad Benson suspected her, too. That's why she killed him. He was a good friend.
You know, you don't look like the sort of person who'd make a friend of a child basher. From what I heard, Benson deserved to die.
Conrad would have cut off his arm before he'd abuse a child. I've seen him work a 12-hour stint on urgent cases and then go straight to the recovery room to hold some kid's hand. He loved children.
Well, if what you say is true, Kate Peterson's a pretty nasty piece of work. She'll need watching.
Like a hawk.
You know, it's funny. She was the first one to spot my kidney disease. And I suppose in a way she saved my life, and yet she's not the sort of person I'd want as a friend. She's a cold fish. Now I know why.
Well, that's all I'm going to say. I just thought you should know. Peterson's a damn fine physician, but if she has any authority in that prison, you'd better be prepared to foot the bill. She does nothing without demanding a pound of flesh.
Well, there's nothing she can get out of me.
Don't be too sure. She'll find some way of making you pay. Her type always does.
Don't you worry about me, Doc. I can look after myself.
Yes, I think you could, too.
Oh, beauty! Is that me second?
Actually, it's your third.
Oh, well, you better keep your eye on me because 4's me limit. Put 'em on me tab, room 17. Put $1 on for yourself.
Ta, how was the meal?
Oh, real good. Why don't you sit down for a bit?
Sorry, it's not allowed.
Oh, they really keep you hopping, don't they? Must be murder on your poor feet.
Well, I better get these out to the kitchen. We're short-staffed.
Yeah, off you go.
Well, if I'd known you were coming, I'd have worn my black negligee. On your own?
No, Officer Ward's checking other cells. This isn't a social call. It's just a routine check.
You could have just checked through the spy hole, but you didn't. Oh, don't be so stuffy. There's no rule that says a screw and a con can't be friends.
I don't know how to take you, Edwards. You're in here for murder. You lead the women in a riot and I get caught in the middle of it. Now you carry on like we just met in a pub or something.
Why not? I've got nothing against screws as people. It's the system that stinks.
Why are you so down on the system? All that carry on this morning when you were guilty all along.
It wouldn't have mattered what I was. It was all rigged.
Yeah, well, I better get going.
Don't. Not yet. Sit down for a minute. I won't rape you. Cross my heart.
Is that a fact? You're after something.
Sure I am. I am human, you know. Well, maybe you just haven't noticed that. Besides, you're never going to find out unless you shut the door. See? Didn't hurt a bit, did it?
Breakfast, Edwards. How are you feeling?
Oh, fantastic. The service around here just gets better and better.
Don't be facetious. If you carry on like that, you could end up in here indefinitely.
You know, I don't think I'd mind that, Mrs. Morris. This place has hidden attractions. You'd be amazed.
I don't know what sort of mood you're in, but I hope you're not planning any more trouble.
Why do you screws always expect the worst from us?
Perhaps it's because that's what we usually get.
Mrs. Morris, you haven't seen the worst. You screws are going to have to let up on us. The lid on this place is all ready to blow. And when it does, there's nothing you or I can do to stop it.
Is that a threat?
Oh, God, you screws are paranoid. Use your head. I don't need a crystal ball to tell me what's going to happen around here. And when it does, you and I are going to be up to our necks in it.
Eat your breakfast. I'll be back to get your tray.
Think about it, Mrs. Morris.
Quieten it down. You know the rule.
What rule's that, Mrs. Bailey? Number 742?
Winter?
They're getting pretty restless, Meg.
Well, you can hardly blame them. Mealtimes aren't exactly social gatherings anymore. I think we'd better move them out before we have a mutiny on our hands.
Right, ladies. Time's up.
What? Oh, I haven't finished me toast yet. And I haven't had me coffee. Oh, I'm useless without my coffee.
You're pretty useless with it, so what's the difference?
Come on, that will do. Now, will you leave your tables and get into groups for your assigned work areas, please?
Oh, and do it quietly. I'll tell you what, Mrs. Morris. Why don't you get some sheepdogs to round us up? Save you a whole heap of work.
Baba.
I'm holding up the line, Winter.
It's all right. We're in no hurry.
No, I know this isn't much fun for you, but the sooner you get down to your work areas, the sooner we can relax the rule on conversation. Now, would you all move it?
You can't blame the women for being touchy, Mrs. Morris. They are under a strain. We all are, Peterson.
As I said, move along, will you?
Well, if it isn't Miss Conway, say good morning, girls.
Good morning, Miss Conway.
Stop that, all of you, or I'll put you on report.
Oh, why, Mrs. Morris? We was only being pleasant.
As far as I'm concerned, you can all go and report.
Oh, now, that wasn't very nice.
Shut up, all of you. Mrs. Morris, could I have Peterson for a while, please?
Yes, of course. Move along, everybody.
All right.
Yeah.
All right, the joke's over.
You wanted me, Miss Conway?
What? Oh, no, I don't, but Mrs. Powell does, and she doesn't like to be kept waiting.
Thank you, Miss Conway. I'll handle things now. I'm sure you've got a lot to do.
Or perhaps we should stay. The new regulations.
I
says that
know
you're-
what the regulations are. So please go, both of you. You and I have something to discuss, do we? I do not intend to have the women plan any more trouble unless I know about it. From now on, you're going to be my eyes and ears. I want to know everything that's going on in here.
You want me to inform against the women?
In a nutshell, yes.
Suppose I don't feel that's in my best interests. I mean, I do have my own future to protect.
Precisely. That's why you'll do exactly as I say. Otherwise, I could make it difficult for you to have any more visits.
All right. Let's compromise. I'll tell you anything I think is important, but you must let me decide when and how. I can't keep running to you with little things that happen. Sooner or later, the women will find out, and we both know what they'll do to me. And I have no intentions of leaving Wentworth any other way but under my own steam.
I don't think you're in any position to dictate terms. You're worried about your health now? Imagine what the women would do if they found out about your little meetings with Grace. Oh, I could also let slip some information you've already passed on. I'm sure they'd be very interested.
I don't think you'd do that, Mrs. Powell. See, it wouldn't be sensible. I'm sure Inspector Grace, with all his contacts, could get back that letter you wrote to the newspapers. And, well, if your name were to come out, that would be the end of you at Wentworth. Most unfortunate. Just pointing out how much wiser it would be to do things my way. All right, we'll try. Now let's get back to the laundry. A new delivery's arrived.
Yes, we're going to be kept pretty busy.
Just one thing, Peterson.
What exactly are you passing on to Grace?
And what are you going to get out of it?
My way. Remember?
Come to give us a hand, have you, Mrs. Powell?
Get on with it, Winter.
Well, where have you been? We was getting real worried about you.
Just having an informative little chat with Mrs. Powell.
What's informative supposed to mean?
Just what it says. Powell thinks it would be a good idea if I informed on you, Sandy, and the others every time you've got something going. If I don't, she's threatened to throw a few spanners into my appeal.
Oh, that's not fair. Well, she can't do that.
Oh, yes, she can. Wouldn't put anything past her. Well, go on, get on with it. We've got all that lot to sort out yet.
Oh, all right.
What did you tell her?
Oh, you don't think I'd do a deal with her, do you?
You might, if you want to get out of here bad enough.
I was a doctor before I was a prisoner, but the ethics are surprisingly similar. I don't disclose information for anyone. And I certainly wouldn't betray my principles for a power-hungry bitch like Powell.
Yeah, well, you just watch it. She can get to you if she really wants to.
She can't touch me. She's already pulled out all the big guns and threatened to let slip to you all I was lagging.
What?
Yes. I think she can make it stick, too. Because I've had so many visits from my solicitor. She said you're all bound to wonder where I've been so much of the time, and you're all stupid enough to believe anything you're told.
Yeah, well, I wouldn't worry about Powell. No one's going to be stupid enough to believe her. If she told me I was on fire, I'd want to see the flames before I'd believe a word she said. Well. Looks like a girl's going to have a bit of Christmas cheer early this year. Santa Claus has just made his rounds.
This is bloody silly. If I'm well enough to get back to prison, I'm well enough to walk down a corridor on my own 2 feet.
Hospital rules, Mrs. Smith. You're still our responsibility till you get to the front door.
Oh, and after that I can break my neck, I suppose.
After that, it's a nice, quiet ride back to Wentworth.
Oh, good. I'm fed up with this place. They don't kill you under the anaesthetic. They bore you to death.
Oh, really, Mrs. Smith? That is most uncalled for.
Just a joke, sister. Hey, could you hold it? I hear the call of nature.
What?
I want to go to the loo.
Oh, I'd better come with you.
Oh, come on. I mean, some things are sacred, you know.
Righto, girls. Payday. Come and get it. Right, you two keep neat. You'll get yours later.
Oh, jeez. You can make more in here than you can on the outside going straight. The only trouble is there's nothing worth spending it on.
I wouldn't say that. I got a few goodies here you can have for a price.
Yeah? Well, what you got?
Who wants to buy a little instant happiness?
Oh, how many can I get for this?
Dr. McIntyre's reception.
She's certainly taking her time in there.
Well, yes. She does seem to be longer than normal.
Sister, there isn't by any chance another way out of that toilet.
Well, yes. There's an exit door on the other side.
No, how could I be so stupid?
Well, service is quick around here. There's more than I can say for those damned hot air dryers. Whatever happened to good old paper towels?
Unhygienic.
Oh, that figures. Hello, quite comfortable now, thank you. So home, James, and don't spare horses. What's wrong with you? You know, you don't look well. Maybe you should stay in here for a while.
To be honest, Smith, I thought you might have tried to escape through the other door.
Now, whatever made you think I could possibly do a sly, sneaky thing like that? I thought you trusted me. I wouldn't dream of doing that sort of thing. And besides, the bloody door was locked.
I'm not sure I like the idea of more male staff. Too much competition. Does everyone know about it yet?
Oh, yeah, I'd say so. It's been about the only topic of conversation around here lately.
Well, why not? It's important to us, isn't it?
Got to admit, it's really going to keep things under control.
Oh, yeah, well, we'll see. I've got my doubts about it, though. I think it's just going to cause more trouble.
Well, I can't see why. No, I'll get used to them in no time.
Oh, come off it, Steve. This is a women's prison. Men are too restricted in a place like this. Besides, they may be prisoners, but they've still got their dignity. Some of them, anyway. We've got to respect that.
That's funny, coming from you.
I wonder what the infamous B. Smith will think about it all.
Oh, hell, thanks for reminding me. It's your only time now, and I've got to handle induction. I'll see you later.
Yeah, don't let her put anything over on you.
Why did you do that?
What?
Cut me off the minute I start talking about us.
I just don't think it's the sort of thing that we should talk about in front of Steve, that's all.
Why not? Are you ashamed of me?
No, of course not, but we're at work now. Our private life's got no place here.
Well, I don't see how you can separate the two.
Well, one of us has to use our head. Looks like it's going to have to be me.
You are ashamed of me. You don't want anyone to know about us.
Look, come on, Janet. You're being silly. You're acting like a child. I just don't want us to do anything we might regret. There are still a few things we've got to work out between ourselves.
I am not being silly or childish, although you insist on treating me as such. You don't give a damn about my feelings. I'm just handy when you want someone to sleep with. Well, if you think you can walk away whistling from me, you have picked the wrong girl.
Well, I thought I'd picked the right girl. I just don't know anymore. Janet, I've never promised you anything, but I haven't used you either. I just think that we should keep it light until we discover what we really feel about each other.
Well, I know what I'm feeling right now. Now, I thought you were different from all the other men I'd known. I was the one who had doubts at the beginning. Remember, you said it'd be all right. And now it turns out that you're like all the rest.
I'm sorry, if you want me to leave.
No, Meg. You have a talk to her. You never know. You might be able to understand what she's raving about. I've had enough to last me a lifetime.
Or could you check with your order department, please?
Returning Smith from the hospital.
Right, I'll take the papers.
Thanks.
Thanks for the lift. I hope it didn't take you out of your way.
That's all right. I didn't mind. Look after yourself.
Yeah, bye. Well, how are you then?
Oh, flat out. I'm glad you're all right.
Yeah, so am I.
Okay, now we'd better see about getting you back into a uniform.
Yeah, I must be driving you wild with desire in these.
Wentworth's got new uniforms now, Bea.
I've heard. I can hardly wait.
Ah, Smith. Welcome back. Enjoy your holiday?
Well, the change of scenery was nice. I hear the girls threw a little shindig to celebrate my return.
Yes, well, as far as shindigs go, this one wasn't much fun.
I know. We'll have to watch that in future.
Look, Smith, there's been quite a few changes since you've been away. Now, I don't want any trouble from you or from anybody.
I'm not interested in trouble, Mr. Fletcher. I just want to get back to living my life in here. Exactly the way I used to. And I don't look so worried. As soon as I get back in that press, things will be back to normal in no time. This way, pet.
It was all him in the beginning. He wouldn't leave me alone. I didn't want to get involved. Now the boot's on the other foot, he just can't take it.
Well, perhaps you should back off for a while, let things cool. Now, I've known Jim for a long time, Janet, and he's been through a lot. Anyway, perhaps you two aren't as well suited as you think you are.
Or maybe you'd just like me to ease off for a while so you can have him to yourself.
You're not serious.
Well, why not? Bob's in Indonesia. And you and Jim go back a lot further than Bob, don't you?
Now, just a minute, Janet. I know you're upset, but this is ridiculous. Jim and I are just friends, the same as you and I are just friends. Now, he asked me to talk to you.
Well, you can save your breath. If Jim Fletcher wants to talk to me, he can do it himself. Now, if you'll excuse me, I've got work to do.
Collect the trays from the cells and take them to the security gate.
Yes, Mrs. Powell.
Don't take all day either.
And don't talk and don't smoke and don't...
Edwards.
Are you all right?
With all those don'ts, it's hard to know. Tell me, what do they give you a lot to eat today? Did it look like tripe and smell like old ferret, or was that just for us bad girls?
We all got the same thing. Thought Mari was going to cause trouble when she got hers.
How is dear old Mari? Worried sick about me, I suppose?
Not quite.
The rest of...
Oh, about the same.
I didn't think it'd take Mari long to make a move. You're still with me, I hope.
Quick, hide those before she comes back. How'd you get on with the VJ? Was he very hard on you?
Let's just say he ran true to form. So, Mari's getting pally with the girls, is she?
I wouldn't worry. You'll be out of here soon.
What are you still doing here?
Oh, I'm sorry, Mrs. Powell.
Hurry up, will you? That is, if Edwards doesn't mind.
Oh, no, I finished things. Just shut the door on your way out. Thanks.
Well, the point is that this is a women's prison, and yet the department are insisting on male and female patrol groups.
But why? I mean, it sounds like they don't think we can handle it.
Precisely. I also think they're trying to blame us for the riot.
Why would they do that?
Well, it all started because of their new security measures. But they'd never admit to it, so they have to try and put the blame somewhere.
Typical male attitude.
I also think there's going to be more trouble. And now, I don't think Steve will forget his first day here. Well, it was during the riot that the women protested very strongly against male supervision in the shower block. And I don't blame them. But if this new system is implemented, it's going to happen all the time.
Well, I don't want to be around when that happens.
Well, you may not be, which brings me to my next point. In its wisdom, the department has decided not to give us any additional staff, but a replacement staff.
I don't follow you.
For every male officer that we get, we lose one female officer.
Oh, you must be joking. Does that mean that we all get the sack?
Well, it's the next best thing. You'll be offered postings in one of the low-security prisons.
Well, I suppose I'm putting my foot in it again, but what's wrong with that?
Well, the low-security prisons are always in the country. Now, what about our families? Are we expected to sell up our homes and move to the country?
Well, I think I've heard enough. If the department won't listen to reason, well, we'll have to strike.
Oh, the department doesn't think it's any of our business. So I do think we have to strongly consider the possibility of striking. And it's not just for our sakes. It's for the sake of the women as well. They are entitled to some personal care.
Does that mean we all go out?
No. I think we should allot 2 union members per day to work with administration, just to keep things running.
I wouldn't be too keen on that.
Neither would I.
Wouldn't worry me. Well, do we vote on it or what?
Well, I propose that we put in a final demand to have the new security measures removed. Now, if this is not met, I'm afraid we shall have to reluctantly strike.
Seconded.
All those in favour?
You may start. And that means eat. Don't talk.
Come on, Smith, get a move on.
Okay.
Smith, talking's now forbidden in here.
I would never have guessed.
Come on, we haven't got all day, Smith. What do you think? Trouble?
Well, if it does come, we'll just have to be ready.
Well, if it isn't Point B. Come back to take over the hard, have you?
You better believe it.
You heard Mrs. Powell, Smith. No talking.
Don't worry, Mr. Fletcher. There are some people I wouldn't bother talking to.
give me roses. I wish he could again, but that was on the outside, and things were different then. On the inside, the sun still shines, and the rain falls down, but the sun and rain are prisoners too. When morning comes around, last night I dreamed we were together, sharing